by KCA. So just now the figure of 10 to 15% was mentioned in passing. Is that something that KCA is working towards? Is there a specific target you have in mind in terms of how much food the agricultural industry can support for Singapore?
Strangely, the targets were actually set by AVA, and I think they have set not just targets, but there's 6 varieties of food. I think leafy vegetables, eggs, fish. What's the other one? I think rice, isn't it? They're going to protect the importation of rice and pork, I think, and something like that. There's a few items of poultry, you know, that kind of thing. But we, as an association, haven't got to that stage to set the scene. So they have actually set the targets, and they have also set aside a certain amount of money to be used to upgrade those particular industries. But then again, I think we are being old-fashioned by just looking at, for example, you know, leafy vegetables. And what about you can grow bananas, you know, instead of just leafy vegetables. And fish, frogs are not fish, and quail is not chicken. So there's a big gap again, what the AVA has set out to do and what on the ground is really happening. Yeah, so Kelly, we haven't set any targets and all that yet because AVA is driving it. So, but we have attended a meeting where we said to them they should look at the categories of what they're trying to do to be more inclusive, so that this is a famous buzzword now, all inclusive, you know. So a fish should include frogs, a fish should include prawns, a fish can include you know, eels and things like that, instead of just fish, you know. And chicken should not just be a chicken that clucks. It can also be a quail. It could be anything else that, you know, has feathers, you know, so like a small animal, not necessarily. We could grow rabbits, for example, right, for food, you know. There's a lot of other small things that people can grow, but you know, one thing which is very interesting, I must mention at this point, I spoke to an Israeli friend of mine the other day, a professor, and he said Israel has a population of 7 million, right? And they grow, and they are a desert. They grow almost all their own food, right? What percentage of the population do you think is involved in that activity? What percentage? They grow all their own food, no? For 7 million people. What percentage of the population? And they grow enough to export. What percentage of the population? 1%. So they are highly, highly productive, which we are trying to do now. There is actually a vegetable farmer who's doing vegetable high-rise, you know, production. So instead of 1 level, he's doing it at 20 levels. And we really wish him well and that he will succeed, because if he can succeed, that's a fantastic opportunity to install that even in HDB estates, you know, and give people work as well. So actually, if you look at it, that, you know, Kelly, if we farmers are going to seriously set some standards now, and some targets and things like that towards 2016. Yeah?
If you did have your way, how much food should local farmers be producing for Singapore's needs?
I really can't answer that question, but I know, for example, only 1% of the land is set aside for farming, 2% is golf course, 12% is roads, 15% is housing, and 20% is for the army. Now, are our enemies going to send the monkeys to fight with us in the forest? So do we really need 20% of land for the army? What are they doing with it? You know? So, Kelly, from now on I'll get a bit more serious since we got 2016 and really look at those statistics. But I didn't realize that as well until recently, because of the Bukit Brown Cemetery issue, that these figures came out. And there was a guy who suggested that we should get rid of Island Country Club because it's got 3 golf courses, caters to only 18,000 people, instead of getting rid of Bukit Brown. So, you know, there's a lot of figures that we don't look at, you know. Yeah, but which is something that not just me should look at, but all Singaporeans should be looking at what we're doing. And I really think that somebody said, was it you, Howard, who told me that if they all did urban agriculture, it could actually contribute to another couple of percentage production, you know. Because you can grow almost everything in your HDB estates. Lemongrass, pandan, etc., you know. Even that will help.
Well, what I did mention is the concept of vertical farming. If you had, for every 5 blocks of HDB, you took 1 block, and you basically knocked out all the side walls, and you could grow leafy greens on the east and west facing sides because you'd have sufficient sunlight. You could grow your herbs and other things on the north-south facing sides. And in the center column, you could grow your mushrooms, right? And that would give rise to a lot more employment, and it would also create farmer markets, which are little social enterprises by themselves, you know, and that's very sexy, and it's very sustainable, and you're decentralizing your food production and cutting down on your imports. Another term that I just learned about last week was something called aquaponics, which I think the AVA would be very familiar with. But basically, it involves setting up tanks of water where you have tanks of vegetables on top of your big tank of water, and you grow fish like tilapia and gourami in the base tank, which provides the nutrients to fertilize the plants on the tanks that sit on top. And it's very sustainable, very interesting idea, and I'm sure a lot of this tech will come up as a point of discussion in 2016.
But even Kelly, I seriously think that in my small knowledge of the land and production and planting, if everybody, as Howard says, instead of having a koi pond, you know, you can have a koi pond, but on the top of it you can grow vegetables as well. I think if everybody, every concerted effort, every piece of land, you grew something which you could eat or boil or do something, I think we can grow 50% of our own food at least, right? But that would be better than the 4% that we are growing, you know, only. And if there is a problem in the world, we will really have serious consequences here.
Right, any more questions from our media?